Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramon. I am so fired up to have you join us today. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the idea of living life and doing business with a purpose. A servant's heart, doing business with a servant's heart. You can add doing life with a servant's heart as well. And when you do that, the impact and change you can make for people is amazing. I'm blessed I get to do it every day. You can as well. The other thing we like to do in this podcast is our guests to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you to have that servant's heart. And this guest today is going to blow you guys out of the water. So get your pad and paper ready. Your call to action today as an audience, think about how you're going to serve yourself and others today, and what impact and change you're going to create today. Key word there is today. Why wait? Because I guarantee you, when you serve somebody and you have a servant's heart, it feels so good. It's like Christmas every day. And I want to thank my sponsor, Pantheon Alliance. Imagine joining a community of high-income entrepreneurs, business leaders to create a world-changing thought leader platform to grow your business and grow and give abundance to others. For more information on Pantheon Alliance, just reach out to me and I'll get you all that information. With that being said, impact, change. My guest has made some pivots in her life. We're going to talk about. We're going to jump right into the big pivot. But being an actress, a mother, passion projects, she's doing all the
countries.
Right things. Countries, yeah, and moving and doing different things. So let's welcome our guest. Anne, welcome to the show.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. I am just thrilled to be here.
One of the servant things you did as we were talking, you moved to Germany.
I did.
I know you did move for your husband, which is definitely a servant's heart. And you're very happy because you've been there, I think, 30 years, you said?
Just about. Yeah, it'll be 30 years in 26.
What inspired you to do that? Besides the husband?
It was my husband, actually.
Just a husband.
I'd been a professional actor in America. I was SAG-AFTRA working on my equity card. And I was at this point in my life where I was young. I thought my path was clear. And that's when, somebody who knew better threw me a curveball in the shape of this hot German guy. And that was that. And I ended up in Germany. Honestly, the last place I thought I would ever end up. But here I am, and I always say, I didn't come for my career, I came for love, but I have managed to make both work, and I don't know which one I'm more proud of. So they're both a lot of work.
Oh my God. And you became a mother. You left acting, it was your passion, it sounded like, as we were talking. You left that.
Absolutely. Well,
became a mother.
Steve, I just didn't see a way forward. I didn't speak German. I got pregnant right away, which is one of the reasons I moved to Germany, truth be told. And I just didn't see a way forward. You have to be able to communicate, to act. And I couldn't speak or understand, so that made it pretty difficult. But within a couple of years of living here, I had I started doing acting adjacent work. So I was doing a ton of voice work, a ton of presenting commercials. Excuse me, I was getting over this cold. And that went on for about 16 years. And honestly, I felt really torn because on the one hand, I had this beautiful family. I am so blessed to have them still. And I was working acting adjacent. So I was doing things that a lot of actors would have been thrilled to be doing and earning enough money to I was earning a decent living with that. So I felt really torn when I wasn't happy with what I had. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I felt like I was not being grateful, and it was sort of as they call it in Germany, this devil's circle. I would just kind of spin around with be grateful. Yes, but I want more. Yes, but be grateful. And that's one of the beautiful things about us human beings is that we can hold these opposing feelings, conflicting feelings in our hearts. And they can both live there at the same time. And they did until my son was about 16 years old. And we had a standing movie date every Friday night. And he came to me on Thursday and said, Mom, I don't want to hang out with you on Friday nights anymore.
Hello.
And yeah, exactly.
Motherhood.
Duh. Yeah, right. And but honestly, it was the first time in 16 years since I had moved to Germany, or 17 years, I guess, since I had not thought about, well, what are we going to do this weekend? What are we going to eat? What are we going to do to fill our time? What are we going to do to entertain ourselves? It was always we. And it was the first time, I think my husband was away on a golfing trip or something to that effect, but it was the first time I could just think, well, what do I want to do? And it was just like, I just want to have fun. And my idea of a good time is an acting workshop. And so I sat down and I Googled acting workshop Munich English, and one popped up. There was a coach out of LA coaching a 3-day workshop that was beginning the next day with one spot open. And I thought, oh my God, that spot has my name on it. And I just whipped out my credit card, signed up for it. And 3 days later, I left knowing that there had been this pilot light that had been just flickering inside me this whole time. And that workshop it just combusted. And I came home and I knew I had to relaunch my career. And that kind of led me to my very first challenge, because I think a lot of times parents, not just women, but men do this as well. We feel the hormones, the obligations, the love for our children is greater than than the things we want for ourselves. And so we put our dreams on the back burner. And then we think by the time we kind of realize we're not needed in the ways that we were, then most people think, it's too late. Now my time is gone. And I'm not going to lie and say that didn't cross my mind. And it was also being told to me, from all sorts of directions, especially as an actor, right? It's like, what do you want to do? You're 47 years old. And I just thought, says who? Says who? Right? I mean, these are all just beliefs that people have, but you can always find you can always find the proof of the opposing belief if you look for it. So it's like just what I always tell my clients now is pretend you're on debate team and argue for the other side. Whether you believe it or not, look for the evidence. That is your task. So if you think you're too old, look for actors that are your age or older and are either just getting their start or just getting their breakthrough. Or, if you think whatever it may happen to be, right? People have all sorts of dreams. Acting is just one of them. And so my very first obstacle was that I was really, really rusty because I hadn't acted in 16 years. Not really, like acting adjacent wasn't really acting. That wasn't what I trained for. It wasn't what I dreamed about. Wasn't my idea of acting. So, but the problem always holds the solution if you just ask the right questions. And so I thought, okay, well, obviously I need to get some training. And I don't want to have to fly to New York, LA, London, to get this really high. I wanted the high caliber training in English, but I didn't want to take the time away from my family. And I also didn't want to, it would have been, tens of thousands of euros to do that. And so I thought, okay, so I need the training here. How do I make that work? And I began to reach out to these coaches that I had wanted to work with and just said, what's it going to take? What would it take to get you here in Munich? And they told me, and I sat down with a little piece of paper and pencil and my calculator and figured it out. And I realized that if I could just get a handful of other actors to take the workshops with me, then I could get the workshops for the same price that I would pay if they were already in Munich. But what ended up happening instead was I was getting these amazing coaches. I was getting free training because I thought, wait a minute, I'm putting in sweat equity. I can have at least my spot paid for. And then, there was so much interest in the workshops that I was even earning between 1,000 and 2,000 per workshop every time. And so I did that for about a year and a half. I called those when I would bring in the coaches, they would call those the big workshops. And then I was organizing little workshops around that. So whoever had taken part in the big workshop was then invited to join in the little workshop, and then we could practice what we had learned. And I was able to really, my whole intention was to get my confidence in my skill back so that I felt ready to launch myself. And I think this is also an area I see it a lot with my clients, people that I coach. People are always waiting to get ready, but they're not doing anything to get ready. Now, it can be a trap because so you have to know when you are ready. You can do the training thing for a very long time. So, or the preparing thing, depending on what your interest is, right?
Yeah.
So there is no such thing as perfection. It was just when I started to feel confident again in what I was able to bring, then it was time to go. And then I kind of put the workshops aside because I was very, myopic about the whole thing. I just wanted the training. And I only pulled them back out again when I realized, like, as I was launching my career, and then I, got into all sorts of other obstacles, challenges around my career. One of them being that I was being typecast a lot. And so I thought, aha, okay. So they're not seeing all of me. They're just seeing this. And so it is my job to show them what they're not seeing. And so then I started to put together a short film a month. I like to do things in months, I guess, give myself 30 days and boom, get it out there. And so I was doing that. And films are super expensive. Even when everybody's donating everything, you still have to pay for the equipment and for travel and lodging and food and, all of those
All
things, right? So
particulars,
yeah. So that's when I was doing the workshops just to make the money. And now this is what I call phase 3 of this is using the workshops as a way to network with people to put us on even playing ground. So instead of me being a little actor trying to speak to a big time casting director or producer, whatever it may be, now I am offering something of literal value. I'm offering to pay them and give them a platform to share their expertise and get to know other actors and expand their network as well. And obviously, I get a lot out of it as well. I get to learn from them and I get to have that relationship with them. But my whole point of it was to be able to have the conversations with them. Because I knew if I could just, sit down and even talk to them for a half an hour a couple of times, that we would be at the very least professional friends, if not real friends.
Yeah, and community is huge, and you've built this community, which is fascinating and awesome because they all can work together, and it's like a spider web of networking. I'm a big networking guy, so I love when you're talking about all this because your ultimate goal is for them to grow, bigger films, bigger shows, whatever that looks like as an actress or actor.
Yeah.
Tell me a story of somebody you've worked with that's an actor. Do you have one on the top of your head? Something that's...
Are you looking for someone famous or what are you looking for?
Doesn't
Just
matter.
like a transformation? Okay.
Can be famous or not, doesn't matter. I know I'm not famous, but you're making me famous, but keep going.
So the first one that comes to mind is Heike. She had been a theater actor and director for over 20 years and had been trying to break into film and television for 3 years before she came to me. And part of it was she was doing what a lot of actors do, which is wanting to be everything to everyone. You know, I can play anything. I'm an actor. I can do anything. But it's not true. I mean, this is authenticity is really, really important. And now more than ever, if you think back to Laurence Olivier is a perfect example. If he were to show up today, we'd be like, okay, Mr. Ham, like tone
Yep.
it down,
Yep.
So there are styles of acting. I'm not to say that I'm sure he could learn today's style, but that's
Mhm.
not the point. But in any case, she had in the 3 years she had gotten 2 roles. Once we honed her brand and really zeroed in on what she specifically was bringing to the table, what was making her stand out in the sea of other women who looked and sounded like her, that's when everything started to change. She got, in a matter of 2 weeks, like after putting herself out there, relaunching her career, she had gotten cast in 3 separate TV shows. Within a few months after that, she had the lead in a feature film. So
Wow.
it really makes a difference. I mean, we are living in a niche world everywhere,
Yeah.
including actors, right? So that's a huge thing. But I am starting my new program, which is Passion Project to Pro. So what I help actors with that program is get better roles. And that is really for trained actors who feel like they've been doing all the right things. Maybe they have an agent, a manager, the casting directors know them, and still they're not getting to that extra level where they're able to get opportunities to audition for the roles they know they're ready for. And
Yeah.
so I help them by honing their brand and then infusing that into their marketing and their networking,
So this is so huge because you're an outsider. I mean this in a great way. A different perspective. Okay, you got your agent, you
Totally.
got all these people in your team. Let's bring Ann in and look at it a little differently. Let's see how we can change your brand to get those better and better roles. I love this because we lose sight of this as entrepreneurs, actors, doesn't matter. We think our team knows it all, we know it all, and sometimes we don't, or sometimes a lot of times we don't. I love what you do with that. I don't want to forget to talk about your podcast because you know me, I love podcasts and you're
Yes,
really good
yes.
at it. I didn't tell you this before the show. I've listened to a couple very, very good podcasts.
Have you? Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Tell
Yeah.
us about the podcast, what people are going to hear when they listen to your podcast.
Okay. Well, can we just stop back on that one thing you said about
Yeah,
the
go
team?
back. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Well, just because I think this is also something that people think as soon as, especially if you have a team that is responsible for certain aspects that make a big difference in your career. For instance, for actors, a manager, an agent. And they leave it all up to them to do the networking, the marketing, the pitching. And what I always say to all of my clients is, look, they are hedging their bets. They have lots of horses in lots of races. You've got this one horse in this one race, and it's up to you to get it across the finish line. These are your dreams. This is your life. You have to make it happen. And you can have their help, but you cannot rely on it. So I
That
just want to put
is,
that out there.
oh,
Yeah.
Ann, no, I'm glad you interrupted. That is so powerful. Thank you for sharing because you're right. It's lose sight of. We trust so many people. And next thing you go, you look in the mirror and go, I've gone nowhere. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast, is that what you were asking about the
Yeah,
podcast,
let's
right?
learn a little bit more about your podcast.
Yeah. So honestly, I started this podcast. It was interesting. The idea came about, well, it came about years before I ever started it. I just had my 80th episode, which I was very proud of. Maybe my 90th. I take that back, my 90th episode. But the idea came about when I had taken a workshop with a casting director back when I was still looking for the answers. Like, what do I have to do beyond what I'm doing? Because I felt like I was doing everything like most actors do. And in taking this workshop with her, I realized she didn't have the answers either. And I was like, okay, I just need to be able to talk with people and make these connections. I knew that making the connection was a valuable thing, networking. And so then that's what the reason originally was for me launching the podcast. I still, have it as a platform to network but it's the real reason is also because I get so frustrated with how disempowering it is for actors in this industry. And we are kind of conditioned in acting school to think, you need to suffer for your art and, it's going to take a long time but, stay at it and be a starving artist and all of this stuff. I think it's really a big disservice. And we learn nothing about the business of being an actor. We learn everything about the craft of acting, which is obviously important. But if you don't also have the business, you're like a bird with one wing just flapping around in circles,
Yeah. It's
And
not
yeah. And so I was really wanting to not only find out for myself, but share that knowledge with other people. And honestly, it's interesting because I have people from kind of different walks of life who listen to the podcast too. And I think maybe because as an actor, you are the brand. But there are people who will reach out to me and say, I know you're talking to actors, but this actually applies to me. And yeah.
I just going to say, Anne, you nailed an entrepreneur to the T. You just put actor in that sentence, but you could throw
Yeah.
entrepreneur because it's the learning lessons. You're alone, but don't do this alone. And your coffee cup you brought up a couple of times. Act
Yes.
bold is a
Act bold.
missing. I love that, and that's one of the reasons when I saw your stuff right away, I'm like, okay, it's got to be on because we're not doing that enough these days.
Yeah.
We're afraid to because of COVID and recession and lose my, all that. We're coming close to the end here, but if you had one tip for somebody that wants to be an actor, what's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Well, get training. That is the first thing. Get training. And then get yourself a really good business coach, someone who's familiar with the industry, because otherwise you're just going to be, really having a lot of frustrating years ahead of you as you wait for luck to strike. And luck doesn't strike that often, and it's not repeatable. So you need to have a strategy and a plan.
And getting training increases your probability, not your luck, but your probability of doing better. I love that.
Well, you're just competing against, people are amazing actors these days, so if you're not a good actor, that's the minimum. So, you have to do that.
You're absolutely brilliant. I told you before the show, you're so smart, but you're smart from a servant's heart. And I love that. You're willing to share this and help people. God bless you.
Thank you.
It's a powerful message. Let's end with a fun note. You like to have some fun? I know you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So
are you kidding?
We're in Germany. I reserved a table at a restaurant for you. For table of 4, you're of course going to sit in one of the chairs. In the other 3 chairs, dead or alive, who would you invite and what food would you order?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. We're in Germany.
It could be the United States, but since you're in Germany, I figure we do it there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll start with this. My favorite food is Japanese. So we'll go to a really great Japanese restaurant here. They're far and few between, but they are here.
Okay. I was just thinking that. Germany, okay, that's interesting.
Well, it's like America. You don't expect, right? It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And who would I love to invite? Well, I think Ridley Scott, but the old Ridley Scott, not the one who made this new Gladiator 2 movie. It's not very good. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. Jane Campion. And dead or alive. Man, I would love to know what Albert Einstein thinks about quantum physics, because I think it does not go with his ideas, right? He always said that the universe is very neat and
Yeah.
that things have a beginning and an end. It's all very binary. And turns out it just might not be that way at all. So it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say about all of that.
That came out of left field, audience. I'm so
Didn't it?
excited. That was beautiful. I'm like, oh, okay, let's go. This is great. A couple things. One, an audience, this is what a servant's heart does. And I told her before the show, you've got a free book people can access. How can they get it? And what's it about?
So this is a free workbook. If you would like to learn how to turn your passion into how to monetize your passion without having to be a coach or an expert yourself, much like I did when I was building that bridge from my passion back to my profession, then this is a free workbook to help you kickstart that. It'll help you ideate whether you want to be foraging for edible fauna in your region, or you want to be decorating cakes, or you want to be refurbishing furniture, or you want to be an actor, whatever it may happen to be. It will teach you how to do events that you can learn from and embrace your beginner's mindset, because that gives you such an advantage. And you are free to learn and earn at the same time. So if anybody's interested in that, they can find it at actboldtraining.com/P as in passion 2.
Beautiful.
Number 2.
Yeah. Is that the best way to connect with you? Or are there other ways they can connect with you? I know people
I'm also on LinkedIn at act_bold. That has really all of my links, from the actors links to the P² links to my podcast, to my email, to everything. LinkedIn, all the places. Instagram. Yeah.
All those good places. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be a guest. It's special what you do, and you really want to help people, and you have helped people, which is even better. You've been doing this a while. I say experience is the best teacher, and you're doing that every day. And audience, here's something you got to understand. If you're a business, because this is doing business with a servant's heart, what she was teaching today is in your business. And I've been told by people, take acting classes to be a better business person. Speaking, connecting, communicating.
There's
right?
so much about being an actor on so many levels that I'm now, because I've never looked outside of what I do, in these 40 years. So it's been really interesting to see how much of what I know as an actor is applicable to other areas. Really interesting.
Yeah. Because guess what? You show up better. You look better, you dress better, you act better, across the board. You guys get it, the audience. Here's the other call to action. People don't realize podcasts are gifts. What do I mean? Well, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You have access to Anne's show, and you're listening going, yeah, I just talked to my cousin during Christmas. She wants to be an actor. She's going to move to LA. Well, guess what? Yeah, you can connect her with Anne. I suggest everybody do that. But you can just pass that gift on of the link and say, hey, watch 10, 15 minutes of Anne, her passion, her expertise, how she can help you, how she can help you grow. And guess what? Your cousin goes and reaches out to Anne, and either Anne gives her a tip and moves on, or she gets hired, and she hires Anne to be her client. And guess what? She becomes an actress. It started with you giving that gift of that podcast link. So think of podcasts that way. Subscribe to YouTube channel. Subscribe to Anne's podcast as well. Same thing.
It's
There's
also
many
on YouTube.
ways.
We're neighbors.
There you go. And what's the name of the podcast? I forgot to ask. What's the name?
Act Bold. Yeah, Act Bold.
Super simple.
Yeah.
See, smart and simple. We all need to be just like her. With that being said, me and Anne want to thank you all so
Dream
much.
big, but act bold. Yes.
Yeah, she keeps adding value as a servant heart. We thank you all for watching and listening to this podcast, and we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with the Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.